What's going on YouTube? Today we got a deck profile here of this new Snake Eye deck with all the new support from both Maze of Memories and Phantom Nightmare, sorry. I was able to pick up all the cards for this weekend thanks to the people in my locals, so shout out to those who helped me get my Poplars and Promethean Princesses. This deck is really good. I prefer this version over Fire King because I like more consistent decks as opposed to more powerful decks. I don't think that one is particularly better than the other, and that it'll devolve down to who prefers what more. Before we get into it, I'd like to say thank you for all the recent support. We got a regionals coming up at my locals, Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming. So if you're in the area, like Pittsburgh area, Ohio, etc., come down. I'll be buying and selling for the store, so come and say hi. And also we will be doing profiles for more budget decks, including Ubel and Gate Guardian, once I get the cards for the Gate Guardian deck. And yeah, we'll probably do a Fire King profile too. I wanted to do Snake Eye because everybody's more focused on the Fire King one. I wanted to get a little bit different content. These lists are both or this list in particular is undefeated. I did change one thing around in it between the premiere event and now that I wish I would have had done before. But we'll go on and get into it. For the Snake Eyes, there's 3 Ash. Best card, 1 card starter. Crazy how strong each of these cards are. Then 2 Poplar. Also crazy card. 3 is way too many because it just clogs. 1 is too little because you don't want to lose access to it. 2 is perfect. I've never drawn 2 yet, but it's bound to happen. 2 Oak. This is one of the changes I made. I was only playing 1 Oak and 1 Birch. Birch comes up every once in a while. Being able to quick effect quick effect summon back on your opponent's turn is really nice. But also just as a free extender that you can use to help push when you get interrupted. But the 2 Oak came up a lot, being able to, summon things back like Jet Synchron from Banished, or just, having the extra name was really important for the grind. And then Jet Synchron as the honorary Snake Eye. Card's crazy. If you see this, that means you're playing the Synchro stuff like Formula Synchron, Baron, etc. But also Jet Synchron in its own is just really good climb fodder as a worst case scenario. For the big Snake Eye and wanted stuff, we got 3 Witch, 2 Flamberge. You really just need to see Witch and a level 1 that basically facilitates full combo into the, I would deem, near unbreakable board. That also protects you from things like Nibiru in 2 different facets, so even if you use your Borreload and it gets negated, you'll still have a way to push back and grind, and you'll be able to still end on a pretty impressive board. And yeah, 3 Witch definitely necessary, especially because I'm not playing Selene in the extra deck, as a spoiler. And then for the reason why this deck is so good, 3 Bonfire, 3 Wanted. Gotta play 3 of each. It's unfortunate how expensive these are. And I hope that Konami does something about these, not like hitting them or anything, but starts mass printing these or makes an unlimited run or something to help get these into players' hands. I know for this card you had a time period where you could have gotten them for 40 or 50 bucks, but still, budget is different for everybody. But yeah, these 6 are the reason this deck is so good. It gives you a ton of consistency and push. And then there's the 2 original in the pure build. I believe that this is correct at 2. You don't really get stopped as often as the Fire King version, but when you do get stopped on the Witch, sometimes it's just really important to have this. And then since we're playing Poplar and Witch, we're going to play the extra target being Temple. This card is crazy, honestly. Just even as something as little as the level 1 fire boosts that it gives, just catch people off guard. And you just push games with these guys, because now they're like 19, 18, 2,000 attack monsters out of nowhere. But also the effect to like crystallize, as I like to call it, from Crystal Beast, from the deck. is really nice because it helps you play around Nib. And then the reason I prefer this version over the Fire King version is because you get to fit a lot more non-engine. To start with it, there's 3 Ash, 3 Droll, 3 Nib, 3 Imperm. So these are the 12 I believe that most decks are going to just settle on. There's a valid argument for switching Nib for something like Effect Veiler or Ghost Bell. I think Ghost Bell is best for the side because it has poor rogue matchups and is really only good against Fire King and Lab. But, you know, those are going to be 2 of the biggest decks in the room, so that's why I said there's a good argument. Nib does nothing against Lab, but it also serves a different purpose being in the main deck because I am playing 2 Crossout Designator. This is to help with pushing my plays through, but it's also really cool in the mirror, being able to call things like the original Sinful, and then still being able to use Wanted to put it back on the bottom, get an extra draw at some points in the game, being able to choke certain things in the mirror. And then there's 2 talents. We're in a hand trap format, and then same thing with the Called By here. Called By significantly worse than these because it also turns them off for you. And in the mirror match, when you're not playing a secondary engine to facilitate more plays, Called By does hurt a lot more. So like you really don't want to use it for anything but hand traps. I know that sounds pretty obvious, but I have played some matches online where somebody just called by like my Ash and turned off their own Ash and they couldn't play. So I figured I'd just mention that. I know it's pretty common sense, but just extra information to give out there. That's it for the main deck. Always going to be a clean 40 in this format. Fire King might go to 41 or 42. But also, I should also mention that I'm not playing the Trap or the new common spell. I don't have the common spell on me, but I'm not playing the Trap. I think this card is actually really strong, and I want to play it. I just don't want to have a dead card going second. And I would love to try to fit it in. Maybe it will just find its way in there. Also, Super Poly, something I'm not playing. I know a lot of people really like Super Poly. I think Super Poly is great. I just wanted to play, you know, this nice little clean 40 card deck version of Snake Eye, and we'll worry about Super Poly. I do know what changes I'd make if I were to play it, and if you guys are interested, I can make a video about that in the comments. If you guys post in the comments that you want to see it. For the links, there's Link Karibo and Anima. The 2 Link ones come up a lot. Even just like things make SP and Dark. But Anima's really cool because not a lot of people are playing around it. Fire King doesn't really have the extra deck space for it. And for some reason, it's still not on everybody's radar. So having Anima's nice. The Dark for stealing their witches, if you don't have access to yours. Hida, I mean, this is just like the God card this format. IP, SP, the other God cards. And then Sunlight Wolf, the actual best card in the extra deck other than Princess. Pretty much everything in this extra deck's a God card, to be honest with you. Everything's just so strong. 1 Heat Soul, 1 Princess. You could easily play 2 if you wanted to. I don't think it's necessary in the pure build. You're not really comboing it with it as hard. And there's an argument to have 2. I just decided to play extra, like utility. 1 Apollosa. The format is pretty much going to devolve into who can stick their Apollosa and keep it. 1 Raging Phoenix and Zelantis for the OTK line. I do not like Selene access code, even though we're playing spellcasters like Droll and Black Witch, because access code is easier to prevent. Also, access code line is much harder to commit to after getting nibbed, where this version is much easier. So I don't personally like it. Definitely nothing wrong with it. Just the beautiful part about this format, which, you know, if you're playing one of these like Snake Eye decks, is you get to really choose how you want to play the deck. Formula Synchron for the Jet Synchron. Cards are just crazy. Like you get 3 draws, and then a 4th off Heat Soul if you get to open the nuts. Savage and Baron. These are the best synchros you could play. If you wanted to, you could play something like Scarlight, because it is a board nuke. It's really good going second, but it's also good for time. I'd also like to mention that there's no sprint in this extra deck. Sprint is for time with something like the Volcanic Scattershot, I believe. I believe that card is in that package is much better in Fire King because if you draw the Scattershot, you can pop it with Island or Kieran. In this version, if you draw the Scattershot, it's going to be harder to remove other than the Witch. So I do not play that in this. But that is something to keep in mind, is that you can play Sprint for time. I think this extra deck is really good. If you really wanted to change something to place like Second Princess, I would cut the Anima. Everything else just feels pretty important. And then, like I said, if I get enough comments asking for, maybe different types of variants of Snake Eye, then I can post like a Super Poly version or just like a going second board breaker version. This is my favorite deck of the format. It sucks that it's so expensive and not a lot of people will be building it because of that, but it's good to know what people are thinking about and trends that are going on because of regionals and stuff. So for the side, 3 Ghost Spell. There's an argument that this could be put in the main deck. I like it in the side. I do not think that it is particularly important in the mirror. I do cite it in the mirror depending if I'm going first or second. And I do not think it's a bad card, but I don't like it a whole lot. And now that transaction rollback exists, it is much worse against Lab. But it is still strong enough to stop them from doing the card twice instead of only having it once. But we'll see how it goes. I personally think this just belongs to the side. It's a really good Punisher for people who are inexperienced with it. Another card I would recommend trying is maybe DD Crow. 1 Kurikara, searchable off Ash, searchable off Sinful Spoil. There are a lot of hands in this deck that are redundant, so you can do something like Wanted, search for Black Witch, and then if you drew your original, you can dump it with the Witch, and then if you do that, you can banish it the same turn since you didn't use its other effect to search for Divicarnate and just out the whole board. It's a really cute interaction. 3 Cosmic for the Runic decks, and for Fire King, denial of Fire King Island is very important. But this is mainly here just for Runic. I have not tested much against Runic decks to know how swingy that matchup is. But just in theory, it sounds like it could be a little rough. As the nature is of Runic, where they banish the right cards, then you kind of just lose. 2 Lightning Storm. This is for Fire King and pretty much anything that makes Apollousa. Like I said, this format's going to come down to how good of a board you can make with Apollousa. She is probably one of the best cards in the format. She is being made with 3 to 4 materials, so pretty hard to deal with. So this just cleanly outs it. It's pretty poor against Fire King, but like if you can force everything out early and then just battle through it, it's pretty nice. So that's why that's in there. 2 Thrust. Thrust is pretty important in the mirror, pretty important against Fire King. There's a lot of effects that happen, mandatory effects like Barong and Ponix. Even if Barong cannot resolve it as a mandatory effect, so you can thrust, and very strong. I played 2 cards for going first and second that are directly related to thrust. Lightning Storm is something you can also thrust for, but these are directly for it. Soul Release and Subversion for the going second card. Sorry, Subversion is also searchable through the Snake Eye combo, so you do not have to get it off thrust, which is a really nice like flex spot, which is why this has made its way in here. Soul Release is decent. I do not think it's the greatest. I think it's really good against the inexperienced Fire King and Snake Eye players, and that's going to be good enough for the first couple weeks. I could be wrong. Maybe this will even come up to 3, but I think right now where it sits, it's just not very good. I'd rather just play Thrust and have more options, because Thrust can also get things like Bonfire, obviously, which lets you keep pushing. And then the other 2 cards I play are Daruma Cannon and D-Barrier for going first. D-Barrier is really good against Synchro decks, obviously. It is particularly really good against the Branded deck. That is going to be a little bit more popular because it is pretty decent into these Snake Eye decks. It grinds very well, and it likes to trade 1 for 1, which these decks like to do as well. And then Daruma Cannon is something where if you want, you can make a really weak board and just have Daruma Cannon as a loaming threat. Lightning Storm and Cosmic Cyclone are much worse against this version of the deck because they do not play things like Island, where it is a one-sided board wipe if you clear it. So theoretically, this will not be threatened as hard. If they do cite Cosmic to stop things like Flamberge, which in Games 2 and 3, you should not use Flamberge until your opponent tries to out the card unless you're forced to by some other means. this is just a really good catch. You can just banish the whole board, or you can just put everything down, then you can just swipe them next turn because it's Atlantis. So there's a lot of cool utility with the Daruma Cannon. Maybe these two aren't the best cards, but these are the two that I've had the most success with so far. And that's it for the deck. So, like I said, this deck is a lot of fun. Thoroughly enjoy it. I feel bad that it is not accessible for a lot of people due to the insane price tag that the fire cards demand. But we are approaching a near tier 0 format. I don't think it's nearly as bad as things as like tier and Spiral, because the games are much more interactive, even from a non-mirror standpoint, which is good for the game. These cards definitely do demand attention, though, and you should really learn how to play these with regionals coming up and other OTS championships for nationals. We will be seeing this all the way up to nationals until I think we get a slaughter list in September or October after Nats. If you guys like the content, remember to comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what deck you'd like to see next between Gate Guardian, Fire King, or Yubel. I'm going to start working on all those right now. Yubel is probably my most favorite of the new archetypes coming out, because Snake Eyes aren't really new. It just got better. So we'll probably do Yubel next, especially because of the playmat. And like I said, if you're in the Morgantown area for the regionals this coming week, come up, say hi, like to chat. And yeah, thanks for watching. Peace, YouTube.